out in today's Alpha Male series of live streams and video uploads that I have in regards to the Alpha Male section of the title. There are things that some people, and very few people at that, can and have done in their lifetimes, where they could say that they actually achieved something that no one else has ever done in life. I can say that on at least 2 occasions. I have been commended for doing a job with the same barge Dragon, that no one else in the world would ever attempt if given the opportunity, whether they were by themselves or with a deckhand. Just too much work, too much hard work, too much dangerous work, too long of a trip to be 93 days on a barge in icy weather. Both times I was in, both times I had snow on the barge at some point during the trip. So the Alpha Male series is going to be about accomplishments that have to do with what I call real men, aka alpha male jobs, alpha male attributes to a particular person, and not what some people mistake as an alpha male because they have a YouTube channel and talk about other people. These are people that are not alpha males that wish they were, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this camera around in a few minutes, and I'm just going to show you the beginning of my trip. This is tape number 2 of 93 days. Now, tape number 1 I will eventually show you, but tape number 1 is me leaving the Port Howard Beach in the city of New York at 11 o'clock at night. And it's basically an hour of running through Jamaica Bay in the dark. And then this is tape number 2, where I hit Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and head towards Miami to where I'm going to revamp the barge. I'm going to take a lot of equipment off the barge and put it in on my property in Florida, and I'm going to take a lot of equipment and stash it into the holds on the barge to bring to Cat Island in the Bahamas, where the barge is being sold to a man named Nicholas Cripps, so he can build a marina on Orange Creek Marina. So I think Bill is here. Thanks for stopping by. I can't see the comments just yet, Bill, but I'm not done with my dissertation. I'll get with you in a minute. Thank you for stopping by. And two more things I want to add. An alpha male. There's a fella here. Well, let's call him a fella. That's questionable. He portrays himself because he made a lot of money. First of all, making money does not quantify you to be an alpha male, unless you own the company. But now you may be an alpha in your field and you make money, but alpha males are typically the owners, the operators, the doers that made something happen. So there's a fella, and we're going to use that word loosely, who a few years back claimed to be an alpha male because he had a wish, want, will, and desire to make love to not one Lima Bravo, but 2 Lima Bravos, okay? That was his claim to fame. That's what he brought notoriety to himself for several days. He was going to make love to not one, but 2 ladyboys. Now, in his mind, that's a real man. I mean, and when you think about it, if you were playing baseball and you could both pitch and catch, no pun intended, that would be a real baseball player. So that may be an achievement. That may be something that you could be proud of, but it's not necessarily putting you in an alpha male category. Making money as the owner of a company would elevate you to alpha male status. But what I did with the barge is far superior than anything anybody on YouTube has ever done before. And luckily, I have a few videos of the event. Now, one other thing that doesn't quantify you to be an alpha male, and this has to do with a fella named Big Cabin, who runs a show on basically his only ability to earn money, and he does earn money, is to allow other people to make fun of people on his show by degrading them, demoralizing them, making fun of them. But what you should know about the Big Cabin is the Big Cabin has never, ever shown you a video of anything that they have done, either one of them, as far as construction projects, working with heavy equipment, doing something that they could say, I achieved this, I did this thing. But I have that ability, and I'm gonna show you what it's like to be on a barge, a 30 by 50 barge. I'm gonna show you what it's like to be on a 30 by 50 barge with snow on the deck. I'm gonna show you in the wintertime traveling alone with 1,700 miles snaking through the intercoastal of the Atlantic Ocean, Chesapeake Bay, Cape Hatteras, the Horn, all of that. I'm going to show you what it's like to do that in this series of videos that I have, maybe 50 hours of tapes. I wish I had more, but the camera got wet at some point, and then it had to be repaired, and I only have about 35 to 50 hours of tapes. But so one thing that does not quantify you to be an alpha male is when you claim on a live stream that you have the ability to take 2 Lima Bravos on for the night, just for the adventure. That's not... That's not an adventure. That's a... None of my friends... I don't know anybody. I don't know any of my friends that had adventures like that. So, and the other fella who only degrades people, never, no videos ever except him sitting in a chair degrading people. That's not an alpha male, because sometimes he claims to be an alpha male, and what he does is he bangs on a little cup and claims that the cup is a pot. Because even that insignificant, silly little thing that he does, it's not an alpha male thing. It's a cup. It's not a pot. There's two different differences, two different things. So let me turn this around. I'll show you what I look like. Most of the trip, I had rain gear on, and my clothes were not wet, but they were soaked with kerosene, because there were so many instances where a fuel line broke, and you're downstairs in the engine room. The barge is still running in a direction. You just set the control, put a piece of rope on it, and hope that it stays in the same direction for a little while, because you got to run downstairs to the engine room, which takes about 40 seconds, go in, look around, check for leaks, and if there's a leak, it's going to be spraying on you. Then you have to shut the engines down. This trip was very hard, and I had done this 11 years before in 1988 when I bought the barge, with very few videos of that trip. So because in 1988 we didn't have video cameras, I have pictures, but no, only about 5 hours of video. They'll be included in this. alpha male series that you'll be able to see. So I'm going to just turn this around, and then I'm going to go and take a look at the comments. This was my rain gear. I'll tell you what, I'll play this for a minute. Okay, let's play this.
That, you know, and working with it, it's kind of trade. I think I'll sell it for half price when I get to Florida. And it's coming off now.
I'm soaked with diesel fuel, by the way. I mean, completely soaked. Okay, so we don't need to see that. And then,
Usually placed in the home, mosquitoes and insects are...
and when I'm not...
I need to get some coat hangers in here. That'll work just in case.
Okay, so let me go over to my, the comment section now. This is the video. The video's in the description box, but let me get over to the live stream part of this. Let's go up here. Now, my fingernails of the picture that you see the picture of, that's the way my fingers looked from the time I left port in New York to a month after I got to the Bahamas, because it took a long time. That's the way my fingers look. Oh, hey, Flying Circus. Hey, buddy. Hey, you know what? Flying Circus DNC. He said that you were selling Spurnups. So if you have a link that you were making Spurnups. Are you making Spurnups? Are you because if you're selling Spurnups, your Spurnups, you're welcome to put a link up there. I mean, that guy shouldn't have a lock on that industry. But thanks for stopping by. Hello, Miko. All right, so, and Bill is here. Now, Bill, I can in a bit. Well, yeah, it takes a few days to make a Spurnup. I mean, a proper Spurnup, yeah. Okay, well, I'll advertise them for you. I think there's a couple of, like the fella that wants to make love to the two ladyboys, I think he would be interested in some Spurnups. I mean, I think that those two things go together. Making love to a ladyboy and Spurnups. For some reason, they kind of seem like they would go together. So Bill says, hi, Michael, just having lunch and watching that video. I see you have been stitched up by a guy named Don before. Oh, yeah. Don is he's a professional troll, Don is. He's a professional troll. He doesn't have, he's a successful businessman that retired that has made his life's work trolling YouTube. Why, I don't know, but that's what he does. So he doesn't really bother me that much because he knows the truth. Like, for instance, Don doesn't believe in UFOs, but Don knows that UFOs exist because everybody knows in the back of their head there's just too many shows and documentaries, and even now the Tic Tac video from the Navy from 2016 came out where these UFOs defy anything that we could build. So Don knows that UFOs exist. Don's problem is believing that I was abducted by a UFO and it took myself and my car with it and transported me back 30 miles from where I remember being on the road, back to the toll facing north on the Whitestone Bridge. Don has trouble believing that, but other people have been taken. Several hours have disappeared from their lives and brought back to the original place or brought back to a completely different place altogether. So now Don knows that's happened to other people, but he has trouble believing that it happened to Michael Fazio. But does he really have trouble, or is he just being the best troll that he can be? I think it's a combination of both, plus the fact that he has a lot of genetic defects in his genes. I think that there's something mentally imbalanced in his head that he could spend 30 to 40 to 50 hours a month writing comments on basically every video in the Philippine genre, degrading about 5 or 6 different people on a regular basis, 8, 10, 20, 30 comments in a day sometimes. and to what avail? I mean, how does that help a successful retired businessman move through life? So that guy, to answer your question, yeah. Okay, tuning in from New Jersey. Keep it up, Mikey. Squill. I'm going to be going past the Taj Mahal in this video. I will show that to you. I think Don was referring to the guy that got you grounded. Oh, that guy, Bob. Oh, yeah, what a fool that guy. You know what? I hired a guy in Michigan named Bob to pilot the barge, and I wasn't on the barge. I had prepped the barge to leave Traverse City, Michigan, and this fella, where is this video? This fella, Bob, said he was a captain, and a friend of mine said, oh, yeah, he's a captain. And I said, oh, all right. I mean, if you know how to navigate the waters. Oh, all right. I mean, if you know how to navigate. This is a live stream. That's not what I want. I'll pay you X amount of dollars a week to bring me to New York City, and then I'll pay for your fare back to Michigan. And we were out on the barge, and I caught him getting high. On the first night out, he was smoking pot. And I said, what are you doing? You're supposed to be the captain. You know, you can't do that stuff on the barge. And it was his shift, and I went to sleep, and he ran me aground. So we were halfway between the Port Austin, Michigan, and the Mackinac Bridge. And when we got to Port Austin, I booted him off the barge. Okay, so here's the Taj Mahal right here. So this is the trip. I won't be able to see the comments, but this is the trip leaving. I just passed the Verrazano Bridge. The Verrazano Bridge is just a few minutes before this section of the video, but it's the end of another video that's mostly darkness. So let's, you can't, there's the Taj Mahal.
When I get into port, I'm going to fill up and pull them up.
That's the Taj Mahal in Jersey City. So you know I'm in the thick of it right now, by the way. There's 3 to 5 foot waves out here.
So I'm going to stop this video. When I get home, when I get into port, I'm going to fill up and pull them up.
And that's the Taj Mahal from being about a mile, 3/4 of a mile offshore, off the Jersey coast. And I stayed outside. In a few minutes, you'll see the barge. And I stayed outside in the Atlantic Ocean. Even though there was a storm coming, the seas swelled up to 4 to 5s to 6s. The Coast Guard was sent out to wave me back into the Intercoastal. But the Intercoastal has a tide running. And my tide chart said the tide was running against the direction I was going in. So I stayed outside because I had a running sea, which means the ocean was following my barge, pushing me forward towards Miami. So that was something, that was my choice. And I told the Coast Guard I called them on, I think, 22, 16, 13. I called them on the emergency channel. They never answered me. The chopper was either not acknowledging me or my radio wasn't working at the time. I don't know. I could hear them. I could hear radio chatter, but I couldn't see the Coast Guard, couldn't hear the Coast Guard. So this is moving on down off the Jersey shore. That's a 35-ton crane I had on the barge. Now you got to remember, it's December 10th, and it's about 30 degrees, and you can see the seas are 3 to 5 feet coming over the front of the barge. And the barge was built in 1943, and the motor's package was a Murray and Tagurtha stern drive unit with twin 671 engines, 165 horsepower each engine. So that was about 330 horsepower diesels pushing a 66-inch bronze propeller wheel. And I had no support except for myself. And you could see the barge set low to begin with. And the first day out, after having the barge for 11 years, the first day out, the front pontoon started leaking. There was 42 pontoons. How that happened, I don't know. It was just a victim of circumstances. And there was just a small leak. I could have done damage to the deck when I was loading equipment and didn't notice it. But one of those pontoons fell up, and the front of the barge went down 7 or 8 inches. And now I'm plowing water. And I'm plowing, 188 tons of barge plus 1,800 gallons of water. That's another 10,000 pounds. So I was plowing 200,000 pounds of barge down on the Atlantic Ocean. And this guy on the train, I love that little mechanism that he has. I like that. Okay, so here, the Coast Guard helicopter, you're going to see that. They are waving to me, telling me to go inside. I'm sure that's what they're doing. And I am waving back at them, giving them the thumbs up. Okay, so right now there's a dark section, and I'm not real sure why that. I think I dropped, there it is. That's the Coast Guard who I got to give nothing but credit to. They are a very efficient, proficient resource for America. You saw how hard they worked to find that submersible the other day. But the Coast Guard, they spend a lot of money on technology to save lives out at sea. So even though they postponed my trip a couple of times for silly stuff like not having the right size bell, not having a big enough throwing buoy, you got to give them credit for what they do. They work really hard at keeping people safe. So kudos to the U.S. Coast Guard wherever they are. So let's move on. This is I'm still off New Jersey, but I'm coming up on Maryland. And the next place to port in New Jersey, this is the camera fell again. The next place to port in New Jersey is many, many miles away. And I could only go 4 miles an hour. So I was, with the current, I was moving at 4 miles an hour, about 3 knots. Against the current, I would just shut the barge off because the barge wouldn't go anywhere. It was a overweight by 28 to 30 tons. I put a supersized crane on there. It didn't belong on the barge because I needed it to do work. Then I loaded up the barge with a pile driving unit, a drop hammer, a pile driving hammer, 4,000 pound pile driving hammer, I loaded up the barge with about 25 tons of extra material. So it was a slow-moving operation. Even maximum speed, the barge would only go 6 knots. So this is off Ocean City, off New Jersey, near Atlantic. That might even be Atlantic City. But my point is, I'm on the barge alone by myself, supervising the repairs on the engines, of which there was much, fueling up the barge when it was necessary, because the tank for the fuel for the barge was only 150 gallons, 125 gallons, I think that tank was. And that doesn't last a half a day, 125 gallons. And now we are coming into, I think, Ocean City, Maryland. I came in the jetty. That was a rough jetty to get into. I didn't have the camera on because it was kind of like haul over in Florida. It was a rough sea, rough water. The tide was flowing out. The ocean was flowing in, and there was 5 and 6 and 7 foot waves at the mouth of Ocean City Inlet. So I put the camera down, thinking that I was gonna need to be on the throttle and the steering mechanism. So I'm not real sure where I am now. I haven't reviewed this video just once this morning. I haven't seen this video in 10 years. But I know I'm on my way to Ocean City. So maybe, you know where I think I'm heading into now? I think I was heading into the Intercoastal. That bridge brought me to the Intercoastal. It brought me inside after I went past Jersey City. And then the reason I didn't like it inside is, see all these marshlands? The marshlands, they said that the depth of the channel was 12 feet, but it wasn't. It was probably like 9 feet. So the stern drive had to be up at like a 45-degree angle to push the barge forward. You lose 40% of your fuel efficiency because the drive isn't straight down into the water. Plus, there were some parts of this that at 9 feet, the stern drive would bottom out. And then there were some parts of this that were so washed away from storms that you almost had to pick the stern drive up all the way. And then you'd only get a half a mile an hour, and you're still burning 12 gallons, for every mile that you go with that barge, you burn 2 gallons if the stern drive is operating efficiently, or 12 gallons if you have it up. So I might be burning 12 gallons per mile to push that barge against the current when the stern drive is not down in its proper position. Now, I'm going really slow here because the stern's up on a 45-degree angle. But with all those things taken into account, look how pretty this is. Look how pretty this scene is. I did 1,700 miles of nature as well as 1,700 miles of piloting the barge. And when you drop anchor at night or put the spuds down at night in a place like this, in the middle of December, knowing it's going to snow all night, and you crawl into your sleeping bag and just laying there at the same height of the window, that's pretty cool. It's not just cold, but it's a pretty cool thing to do. And you are at the mercy of your ability. If I was to have fallen down and not be able to get up, you would not see another boat on this canal maybe all day or maybe for a week. And then they might just pass you up if you can't yell to them. So the danger involved with doing a trip like this by yourself is super high. It's probably, it probably could be considered one of the most dangerous jobs in the world to do. Lots of dangerous jobs, but to do this by yourself, alone, in the winter, where it snows, sleets, hails, and ice storms, plus hurricanes in Chesapeake Bay with 17-foot waves. It's quite an accomplishment. So let's move on a little bit. Let's go look at the chat, see if anybody's saying anything. That's the fourth window over. Okay. Flying circus. Okay, so flying circus is my a wrench, and he's been a friend of mine for years. So I love the Taj Mahal. I don't think I've ever been. I'm not sure if I was ever in the Taj Mahal. Once, my brother's buddy, he was a pilot. He took us to Atlantic City. My brother will play cards. He's not a degenerate gambler or anything like that. But the other two men, we took a 4-seater Piper. Something. It was a Piper Cub, I'm pretty sure. But a 4-seater. And he took there was 4 of us total. And they went gambling, and I went to the beach. I didn't even go in any of the buildings. But I don't know if I went in there or not. But I saw it. But I don't gamble. I've never gambled. I've never sat at a casino table and put money on. I played the slot machines a few times, a couple of dollars, but no. Maybe they had a program, PL tone, that you didn't turn on. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what channel they were operating on. So what do we got here? We have Flying Circus. Let's see. Is it the same one? Okay, yeah. Well, let's see what we got here. If you want to see a good documentary on the submersible, it's not a submarine. It's not a submarine. It's a submersible. Go and look up David Cameron. David Cameron, he's the fella that went down to the Titanic. David Cameron has done about 5 interviews about the submersible. He's also a submersible pilot. Flying Circus, I'm not seeing a video. Okay. David Cameron has the best videos with the best explanation of what possibly could have happened. Okay, as Flying Circus. Flying Circus is a video creator. So if you got a couple of minutes and you want to subscribe to one of the most unique channels of YouTube, that would be Flying Circus. And this is not Flying Circus, but let's see what we have here. He does parodies and comedy videos using some YouTubers' faces and YouTubers' voices. Thanks for that. Hey, Louis Pagan Ponce, good morning. Or good evening in your case. Thanks for stopping. Hey, oh, we got a pot. We got to show them what a real man's pot looks like in a minute. So to this fella, Squillum, David Cameron has done, well, let's just look it up for you so you don't have to look it up. We'll look up David Cameron because you may not know who he is. Let's look it up. David, let's see, David, DAVIDCAM. Oh, now it's not even showing. What's going on here? All right, I got to stand up. DAVIDCAM. Okay, let me just give you, he does a lot of interviews. He did several interviews of this submersible. He knows how they're built out of carbon fiber. He knows, he's been in submersibles many times. He has his own multi-million-dollar submersible. He's been to the Titanic. He explained that the carbon fiber submarine had 5-inch thick walls and that the probability of the walls delaminating, and you'd have to, I could explain it to you, but after a certain amount of times of expansion and contraction, the fiber, the carbon fiber, and the epoxy that they make the carbon fiber bond with, it delaminates. And he explains how delamination occurs and why carbon fiber was not a good choice for a submarine, a submersible to go down that deep. And so if you want to know what happened to the submersible, from all the interviews I watched, he would be the best person to get advice from. So let's go back. Mick Fisher. Hey, Mick Fisher. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by, Mick Fisher. So this is one of my adventures, Mick Fisher. I'm going to get a pot, but this is a barge, a 30-foot by 50-foot barge. I piloted from Traverse City, Michigan to New York. It took 93 days, 1,700 miles through Lake Michigan, Lake St. Clair, the Detroit Straits, Lake Erie, the Black Rock Lock Canal in Tonawanda, New York, down through the Erie, the barge canal that was built from upstate Buffalo down to New York Harbor, and then to New York Harbor, and then around to Kennedy Airport. And that trip in 1988 took 93 days. This trip is a trip going back from New York to Miami, and then from Miami, I revamped the barge and brought the barge to Cat Island, another 350 miles off the coast of Miami, all by myself, by the way, not with a crew. So just to bring you up to date, because Mick Fisher, it looks like you just came in. So I'm gonna play this video, and then I'll let you watch this. Now you got to remember, it's December 10th. It's about 30 degrees. It's going to snow in a couple of hours. When I wake up from this part of the trip, it's snowing. In this part of the trip, right here, it was rough seas, 4 to 5 to 6 footers on this little barge. 30 by 50 barge is a small barge. By myself, waiting for a snowstorm, which is the reason I went into port in the back of the Intercoastal, because the radio kept saying that we were going to have a blizzard, snowstorm as a forefront to a hurricane that was coming on December 13th. And this is the back waterway, the Intercoastal. This is what the Intercoastal from, it starts in Sandy Hook, New Jersey. And it's a waterway that runs parallel to the United States the Atlantic Ocean coastline, and off the coastline from anywhere from a mile to 3 to 5 miles in, but it runs parallel pretty much through a natural and man-made canal zone. So I was inside now in safe harbor because we were about to have a blizzard turned out to just be a few inches of snow, but they were calling for a full-on blizzard. And the camera is shaking. I'm trying to run the barge. I'm trying to pilot the barge through sets of buoys. I'm trying to keep the barge in the center of the channel. And I'm doing that with one hand while I'm holding the camera with the other. So it's a bit shaky, but it's still, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And again, thanks for stopping by. Al Vicino and Louis Paganponce. I'm going to get a pot. I'm going to show you what a real man's pot looks like in a minute. I want to just let Mick Fisher catch up with, this is a beautiful, you know, if you could do this trip in a 40-foot cabin cruiser with the comfort of a stove, a refrigerator, a big screen TV, and being up off the water, about the cabin is, where I'm standing is 14 feet off of the 14 feet off the water. Now that's an electric heater. I didn't have heat. I don't have 110 on the barge, but when I pulled into port, I would plug that in. And this is my living quarters. This is the living quarters. I didn't have much. I think my shack actually looks better than this, what I was living in. Actually, my shack is better. It's almost like, it's like shack life, but it's not shack life. But it is shack life. It's tough living on a barge. It's really, and in a 5-foot by 7-foot room is even tougher. Now that has big meaning to me. Big meaning. That emergency kit, first aid kit came from the Lillian Rose. That was the tugboat my dad ran when he was the master captain at the Verrazano Bridge. He took that home when they every year you had to buy a new first aid kit, and he would bring them home for us, give them to the family. So that was the Lillian Rose, was a boat that I ran when I was 5 years old. My dad was the master captain on the construction of the Verrazano Bridge, and he was the one who brought all the cofferdam material, all the rocks, all the riprap, all the pilings. He was the head of that operation, and he ran a big boat, the Lillian Rose, and I got to pilot that boat when I was 5 years old. I also got to walk across the Verrazano Bridge before they put the bridge roadway down. There was a chain link fence, nothing more, nothing less than a chain link fence interwoven with one another, and that's what you walked across on the Verrazano Bridge. Now this is after getting the barge ready to shove off from Howard Beach. I left on December 8th, I think it was. And this is what my hands look like 4 days later. But they looked like this for months. I was working on the barge. I did about 50,000 US dollars. Put equipment on, changed all the belts, changed all the hoses, changed all the hydraulic fluids, changed all the oils. The engines took 25 gallons of oil each engine. The hydraulic fluid was 125 gallons. The belts were Gates, G-A-T-E-S, Gates green belts. I changed the belts. I changed all the hoses on the barge. It was a freshwater cooling system. I flushed out the system. So for a month and a half, it took to get the barge ready. That's what happened to my hands. And I call them real man's hands, because look at that. It looks like I chewed my fingernails, but I didn't. At the time, before I learned about distilled water, I had what is called a fungus underneath my fingernails. They would grow just so far and the nails themselves were very thin. So I just used to rip them off with my other fingernails or cut them short. And this, where it looks like I chewed my fingernails, this was the fungus underneath the nails. I'm sure Don C. and others will have a field day with. Oh, he had a fungus on his hands. Yeah, just remember, I'm the only alpha male showing you alpha male stuff. Not the only alpha male, but I'm the only one showing you alpha male videos. And I had a fungus under my fingernails. And again, that was not my fault. But this was the instrument gauge. One of them is a tachometer. That didn't work. But the fuel pressure gauges, I made those work before I left. So I had fuel for the tank gauge, I had oil pressure, and I had temperature gauges. They worked when I left. They didn't work when I got to Florida, but that was another story. So there we go again. That's what your hands look like when you're working in mechanical stuff for a month, and you don't care. You just got to get the job done. So let's move on to what the pilot house looked like a little bit more. And we'll move forward a little bit. Now here I am talking, and I'm going to get a pot. But here's I'm talking about what it's like to live on a barge, and what I just went through, the adventure for the first 3 days that I went through. I'll let you guys read the. I'll leave the sound on, and I'll let you read the commentary in the captions. So let's put this up like that, and then you could watch me talk. I'm not upset about any of this because I've already done it once for 93 days from Michigan to New York. I knew what I was getting into, but I was earning 50,000 US dollars to do this. So even though it was hard work, I was still making at the end of the day about $800 a day to pilot the barge. So for $800 a day, the real man comes out in Real Men. So let's have a look at this.
Because the batteries, somehow or another, the batteries came back online. The alternator wasn't fried. I found the wire shorted.
Okay, the batteries went dead. The batteries on my barge went dead. I had no lights.
And that's in the journal I wrote down that this place needs to be straightened out. It's hard to drive the barge. That old first aid kit from the Lily and Rose. I don't know if you can see it. Sure you can. I guess that's Dad's handwriting from 25 years ago.
Okay, so
that flag looks like I feel tattered. There's my mirror, in case I want to shave, which hasn't been the case as of yet.
Michael Jack. The shock of your.
This is what my hands look like after 5 days on the barge. It's hard to describe, but it's not real easy keeping them clean when you have them in diesel and fuel oil and transmission fluid and crankcase oil, battery acid. They just don't, they're just hard to keep clean. What could I say? Right now I'm sitting out here by buoy 386. I'm grounded. I've had better days, but I've had worse. All in all, I have to say it was a good day. Because the batteries, somehow or another, the batteries came back online. The alternator wasn't fried. I found the wire shorted, and I found that the battery terminal, one of the connections, was loose. But the weight of the wire pulled the battery, the terminal on the alternator down, and it shorted out on its own housing. That was fun. That I found out last night about 10 o'clock while I was grounded at buoy 348. It's raining pretty good out there. I really didn't feel like going on anymore because the tide was against me. The wind finally came to my back, but all I did was blow diesel fumes in my face for the last 4 hours. I've been sucking up diesel fumes. So I'm going to take a break until about 7 o'clock, and after I get that roof fixed, I'm going to see if I can take a nap. It's been an interesting experience so far. This is day 5. I'm probably about 200 miles or 180 miles from the house. Considering the obstacles that I've went through, it's not so bad. But I'd still like to use Don Strzok as a sea anchor. And I'm going to tell him that when I see him. Don, you lied to me. Not only did you lie to me, you deceived me. Not only did you deceive me, you intentionally deceived me, and you intentionally lied to me. I guess that's how you make a living, huh? Sad. In any event, everything's working okay. I can't get the coordinates punched into the LAN. I don't know if it's the coaxial cable or the antenna might be, it's 10 years old, but it should work. The radio works fine. I guess there's not much more to say. I'm having a good trip so far. At the end of each day when I go to sleep, I realized that it wasn't such a bad day after all. And I have no trouble sleeping. None whatsoever. This is what's happened to the rain gear in the last 2 or 3 days. It's frayed. It was dry, and from wearing it and working with it, it's kind of frayed. I think I'll sell it for half price when I get to Florida. And it's coming off now. I'm not sure how much time is left on the tape. We need to get some coat hangers in here. That'll work just in case. This is a lovely aspect. The back of the head part of the rain gear, when it rains real hard, it penetrates right through that little hole there, and it goes right down your neck.
Right down the back of your neck. Ice rain.
The cuffs are wet. Right now I'm probably just babbling. Mom's worried about me. Dad's coming home from the hospital today. I stopped to get fuel in Ingram, Delaware, I think. I don't know what state I'm in. I have no idea where I am. This chart only tells you what buoy mark you're at. I'm at 386 on the 386 on the Intercoastal. I have no idea where I am. I know that south would be that way, and that's the way eventually I'm going to head as soon as the weather clears up. Rain ceased. Well, it's been doing that all day. I think that's just about it. That covers it. I'm using a lot more fuel than I had anticipated to go, let's say.
Here it is.
The first couple of days I was getting about 2 gallons to the mile. Then yesterday hitting that storm out in the ocean that I showed you, and then going against the tide and the wind in the Intercoastal, and having the prop up at a 45-degree angle, I used 4 gallons to the mile. So it's just as well that I'm stuck now because I was going against the tide anyway. So I might just as well, the money that I burn up with the fuel, I might as well just save that money and take an extra couple of days. Well, that's about it.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to looking at you, and I can read the comments now. Let me turn this camera around. So I need to look to see. I got the pot. I got to get the pot set up. I was going to get the pot set up, and then that fella Squillum, if you're still here, I'll answer your question. David Cameron was clear as day. This is why I say his interview was the best. He said at 3 p.m. Sunday, they heard with the regular sonar buoys that the Navy and the Coast Guard have all over the world, or all over everywhere, sonar buoys. They said they heard an implosion, but they couldn't be sure that it was the submersible. So he was sure, David Cameron was absolutely certain that 2 hours into the venture, the adventure, the sub imploded because they lost both communications and there was a backup system for navigational data that would go out using underwater acoustics. And that transponder, or the whatever was making the acoustical sound, letting that was just sending it off in any direction. They lost the communications, and the word verbal communications, but they lost a separate package that sent off pings and dashes and dots and code. They lost that at the same second, within 1 second. So that, David Cameron explained, that would indicate a catastrophic implosion. Nothing else would have done both systems at exactly the same time. So they knew from day one there was no hope of saving them, but they didn't say that. So, and the news would never say it because they're sensationalists to sell papers. Okay, so let's go back up here. Al, I'm going to bang a pot, the real man's pot. These guys that bang a cup, they get a plastic cup or a styrofoam cup. They don't know how to bang a pot. I bang a pot. And remember, I'm the only one that has a pot to bang. And I have a window to throw it out of if I wanted to. So let me get my pot. My pot is full with, actually it's full of junk because yesterday I cleaned my desk. Okay, so Louis Pagan Pants. Louis Pagan Pants. Thanks again, Mick Fisher, if you're still here, for stopping by. And Squillum, you go see those David Cameron interviews. He is clear as day that he knew, and he said it on Sunday or Monday morning. Louis Pagan Pants. He makes the big ego look like a tiny little man of the industry. No matter how big the ego thinks he is, Louis Pagan Pants makes him look like a little kid. Louis runs a bigger enterprise than Big E would ever, to his surprise. Thank you very much, Louis Pagan Pants. Salamat. Yeah, that's true. So that there's a fella that I know that makes whatever that Big E fella does for a living. Louis dwarfs what he does. So I actually never. It's hard to believe, but whatever the Big E says that he does, I believe it's true. But I didn't see any of it. I believe it, but I didn't see it. In Louis Pagan Pants' case, I saw what he does. Louis is the man. Big E could only hope to achieve Louis's leftovers at some point. But that's okay, because not everybody can aspire to be the best in the industry. Thank you, Louis. Now we're going to go I saw an Argentinian pianist in 1994 at the Taj Mahal. It was awesome, says Louis Pagan Ponce. The problem is, 5 minutes before entering Atlantic City Strip, the outskirts are poverty-stricken. You know, that's true. You know what, Louis? When my godfather, Frankie Calise, became the Teamsters shop steward at Kennedy Airport, Atlantic City was just getting set up back then in the late 70s and the early 80s. And he said, if you want to become a millionaire, you buy land outside of Atlantic City. This goes back because the politicians and the mafia and all the bent noses, they were all in on all the real estate deals. He said, you just buy swampland anywhere near Atlantic City. Buy anything. If it says swampland on it and there's a road going through it, you buy that. And in 30 years, you'll be a millionaire. And that's true, because now those are all shopping centers and malls. So I remember them talking about that. They tried to get my father to invest, but he didn't do it. But I remember them talking about investing money into that poverty neighborhood, even if it had welfare houses on the property that were condemned, condemned houses, and you had people living in, he said, you buy that house, you buy it for $3,000 or $4,000 for the house and the lot, and wait 30 years, you'll be a millionaire. And a lot of people did. Not my family, but a lot of people in the area did. Alcino Vargas, thank you, Alcino. Now we have a super chat coming in here. Flying Circus, Mickey Rourke face. Yeah. You know, I love that guy, Mickey Rourke. He is such a good actor. I saw him in a movie where he was young, a young Mickey Rourke the other day. He was a really good actor. And what I remember Mickey Rourke, actually, the fingernails in my video, I remember Mickey Rourke has these big round fingernails, very wide and very high up, with a cap on them, a canter on his fingernails. His fingers are amazingly different than anybody else I've ever seen. Flying Circus says, I think they knew the crew perished, but used the news to cover some political drama. Yeah, they did do that. And yeah, they heard the implosion. David Cameron, he's an actual pilot of submersibles. He knows everything. I watched about 4 of his 3 to 4, probably an hour and 15 minutes of his commentaries about the submersible. He explained how carbon scuba tanks and carbon pressure tanks are made to withstand pressure from the inside, but not the outside to the same degree. Something about the way the pressure from the inside doesn't delaminate the fiber from the epoxy bonding agent. But when you put the pressure from the outside, it can delaminate. And that's what happened. That's what he thinks happened. And even though the submarine worked for many, many trips down to the bottom, the submersible, it delaminated. And when that starts, the water gets between the laminations, just starts blowing it apart. At that pressure, it could have taken 1 second to delaminate 5 inches of product. That's what he said. You go watch his interview. They delayed the tragic news so that they could sell advertising, is what they did, in my opinion. Scott Del Fuego, everything is political with the crime family running the executive branch, and most of the rest are not worth anything either. No, none of these politics. I've always said, everybody, you people that believe Trump is the end-all, be-all, Trump is going to be the one. If he's the president, Trump is going to put all the rest of the nails in America's coffin. You just take my word for that. He allowed Fauci, knowing that Fauci was lying, he allowed him to shut down the world. He went ahead with the one vaccination program is going to cure all, and then he changed one vaccination is going to cure all, then he changed it to a vaccination program, and then he left office, and then he blamed Biden for the lockdown. It was Trump that allowed Fauci to lie to the American people. It would be Trump and his number twos, associates, that finally destroy America. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I've always said that the lockdowns were unnecessary. A chain link fence has a 2-inch by 2-inch hole in it. The virus would be like a mosquito flying through a chain link fence with a mask. The mask would not stop it. I always said that because I knew the size of the virus compared to the micron stoppage of the mask. Dangerous time, says Scott, to traverse the Atlantic seaboard in a heavy barge without freeboard. Well, Scott has that nautical freeboard word down. Oof. Oof. Alpha male fungus. That's an alpha male fungus. That's right, Squillum. That was an alpha male. That was a serious fungus among us. The Great Lakes were 1988. I wish I had more video of that. I have video from the Great Lakes. Mick Fisher, James Cameron, maybe, the director of the Titanic. Yes. Yes, that's the fella that you want to go look at. That's the one you want to watch his videos, why the submersible was destroyed. Dennis Adam is in the house. Hey, Dennis, get a free bang. Dennis Adam is, he's such a great guy, Dennis Adam. I told him that I needed a certain parts for a motor that I'm working on. I'll get them for you. I'll go. I said, just hold off for another week, Dennis. I got 2 people looking in the Philippines, as far as Manila and some other place in Malaysia. And the parts are either going to be here next week or the week after, or they're going to come and they're going to be the wrong parts and I got to start again. So just hold off on everything. Thank you, Dennis, for the offer. So Alcino Vargas, I apologize. So who is Alcino Vargas? You know him, he's famous. Remember Playboy? Just before the centerfold, there was always a Vargas cartoon of a playmate in caricature. Vargas Cartoons is Alcino Vargas. He's a very famous cartoonist from Playboy. He's one of the more famous cartoonists, caricatures in the world. Thank you, Alcino Vargas. He's been my friend since 2010, supporting me in every way, shape, and form. He sends me all those comical caricatures, and I laugh because here he is on my show. A very famous cartoonist he is. Alcino Vargas is in with the frizz. I got the people out in the street looking for the bell. I got the tricycle driver just stopped and looked around. He thought he was making a railroad crossing or something. I stopped him dead in his tracks. He thought he was crossing a railroad or something. He's like this. Then he seen me in the window and just waved him on. Hey, Flying Circus, the Vargas girl, that's right. Thank you, brother. Alcino Vargas, he's a famous man. Let's go back. Thank you very much, Alcino. Let's go back to the. Now, of these videos that I have, Now, I'm doing this for a dual purpose. I'm doing this because I found, okay, so what I have here is I have, this drive is number 3. This drive is number 4. This drive is from 2013 onward. And this is a 3 terabyte drive. But this only goes up to 2018. I have these 3 terabyte drives. At the time, I think I bought 6 of them. So this is number 3. And then I think I have 6 3 terabyte drives, 18 terabytes of videos that I made over the course from the 1990s onward. Even back in the 1980s, I borrowed a fella's video camera. I have those videos somewhere, but I don't remember what drive they're on, because those early 1980 videos, there's just a few. But the point is that I did save all of this stuff for posterity. I had no idea YouTube was going to be a thing, you know, a place to put videos, a video platform. But I saved all that stuff. So I have those 6 drives are 18 terabytes of videos in high definition. But then I have about another 12 terabytes of videos that I made since I got to the Philippines. So I'm putting this stuff up because there has been question as to whether or not I owned a barge, I piloted a barge, I ever drove a barge, whether or not I did work on captain tugboats or grand cranes, or whether I'm licensed to pilot a barge, whether I was licensed to captain a tugboat, whether I had a captain's license, whether I had an ocean racer. All of these people, they put into question my authenticity. And now that I shove it in their face, they got nothing to say. None of them can congratulate me because it makes them look like underachievers. Now, if you just move through life as a normal person, that's how most people move through life. I did not live like that. I was 25 years old, and a man didn't show up with a crane with a pile driver on it. And I had 16 sticks to put in on a canal to build a deck, and I had $30,000 worth of lumber in the backyard waiting to build the deck for a $180,000 deck. And the guy with the crane was supposed to show up with the pile driver in it, and he didn't show up. This is back in 1980, 83, maybe 84. So as an alpha male, this is the difference between a regular man, young man, old man, regular workman. This is the difference between workers and alpha males. So here I am. I got $30,000 worth of 2x6s, 4x6s, 3x10s, 3x12s, at least 12 kegs, small 25-pound kegs of hot dip galvanized bolts and hot dip galvanized washers. I got $55,000 worth of lumber and poles on the barge. I got drill bits that look like this. No, I can't get it. It's wedged in there pretty good. I got 3-foot-long drill bits, 1.5 inches in diameter. I got a half a dozen of those brand new to start putting the whalers on the bulkhead, and the guy doesn't show up. And I said to the guy, "You said you were coming. I got the sticks." Wait, the men and I hauled the sticks in on a trolley, a heavy-duty industrial trolley. The men and I got the lumber in the backyard. It's all routed. We're waiting for you. I don't think I'll be able to make it for a couple of months unless, he tells me, unless you can double the price what the service fee is? I said, I don't, it's not in the budget. He goes, well, then you're going to have to wait. So he was extorting me. So I took Bobby with me, this fellow, Bobby Newton, that I grew up with. I said, come on, let's go. He goes, where are we going? I said, we're going to go buy a crane. And he goes, he didn't believe me. He just said, you're going to buy a crane? I'm going, yeah, I need a crane, Bob. I'm going to go buy one. You want to come? He goes, yeah. He goes, we got nothing else to do. Him and I went to a place in Flushing, Queens, New York. This is what an alpha male does. That sold cranes, live boom, live wire cranes. Him and I went there. And there were cranes. The one that's on the barge was in 1955. It was built the year I was born. It had never been used except from the city of New York as a crane with a sand bucket on it. And all that crane ever did was pick up sand to put in the sand trucks that sanded down the roads of New York City, or pick up salt. It never did anything else. It never dug dirt. It never dug rock. It never did anything except picked up sand and salt at the warehouse that they had stored for sand and salt. But that crane had no transmission. It was a mobile crane, so that you could sit in the front cabin of the crane and drive it down the road on rubber wheels. But they blew up the transmission. But the crane itself the brakes were like new. They probably have replaced the brakes, but the brakes were replaced within a year or two before I bought it. So all the brakes on the drums were all new. The cables were new. The tires were new, because the city always maintains their tires. And the crane was $10,000 cash. Well, that's what I had on me. So when the guy wanted, I think, $12,000, I said, I'll give you $10,000 cash right now. And I took it out of my pocket. And we're going to deliver that crane to my job on 95th Street in Howard Beach in the morning. We're going to deliver that crane. That's how we're going to do this. And he said, okay. I gave him $5,000 cash. They set the truck up. And while they were setting the truck up, he says, look, what we'll do is we'll bring the crane right to your job right now. Because he wanted the other $5,000. Let's go. And that was it. I owned a crane. Now I needed to build a drop hammer. This is an alpha male thing now. I needed a crane. The crane's not showing up. I went out and bought a crane. 35-ton Loran diesel crane. The crane didn't leak oil. Nothing leaked, and there wasn't a drop of oil leaking out of this thing. You got to remember, it was maintained by New York City mechanics. Maybe I could have fixed the transmission, but I don't run it down the road, so it didn't matter. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that guy put that crane in the driveway. I got a tugger hoist out from one of my gang boxes that would tug 14,000 pounds workload with a 4-foot lever. I put a 4-foot lever on it. I put a cable to a dead man, a piling I used as a dead man from a pre-existing piling in the dock system, and I tugger hoisted it up the driveway. There was a little bit up incline, about 18 inches. I tugger hoisted it up the driveway, and then I tugger hoisted it another 90 feet to the water, to where I could turn it, and then I put the tugger hoist on the neighbor's piling to the left, and I tugger hoisted the crane, which would have been south. I tugger hoisted it south, got in and turned the steering wheel, And that's where and then I needed a drop hammer. So the next morning, Bobby and I went to a pipe supply, and I got a 16-inch pipe, a half-inch in diameter the pipe was, and I bought some steel plate and 3,000 pounds of lead. And I welded inside I cut a piece of steel plate inside the pipe, like you cut it here inside the pipe. I took the pipe, I made a piece of metal, I put it in the pipe, and then in the pipe I welded it from the bottom, and then I crawled in the pipe as far as I could with the stick, because I only had to go in 6 feet, and I put a stick on the welding cable, and I used a broomstick on the welding cable, on the welding rod, and I welded the bottom of the bottom of that plate. I welded it for 2 days. I just kept throwing bead over bead. I couldn't see what I was doing. Then I would chip it out with a 6-foot straight bar, and then I'd weld more, and I would chip it out because you don't want the lead to be falling out, because that was expensive. But you don't want it to fall on somebody, because that would be dangerous. And then from the top, I could weld it as much as I could weld it from the top, where you put the lead in the top of the pipe. So at like 6 feet, it had a 6-foot drop, boom, 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 like that. And at the top, it was like 18 inches of solid lead. And whatever wasn't solid, I filled up with cement so it wouldn't rattle. And then I welded that. It took about 4 days to weld that hammer together. And then I welded a cap on that, and then I put an eye on top of the cap. And that was my drop hammer. That lasted, I sold the barge with the hammer. It lasted forever. But it was, and that's how I put my sticks in. They used to call me Concrete Head, because one of the fellas that came to watch me build the drop hammer was another barge owner, Tommy Piles. And Tommy Piles saw me put concrete into the top of the drop hammer. I knew him since childhood, but we were friends, but he just was in competition. We were in competition with each other. And when he saw me put the concrete in the top of the pile driver, the drop hammer, he was laughing. And I said, "What are you laughing at?" He goes, "That's not enough weight." I said, "It'll work." Because all he saw was the concrete, but the hammer weighed 4,000 pounds. And when you drop it, boom, boom, you might get 50,000 pounds of pressure on top of the pole. So it worked. It would drop a 60-foot stick into muck 20 feet deep in 2 or 3 minutes, if it was muck. And then if it had to go through hard pan, it took longer. Dirt, sand, a little bit less time, but it worked for everything I need. And that was a small hammer. There was another fella that had an 8,000 pound hammer. That one, I was jealous of that 8,000 pound drop hammer. So let's go over here. Let's go back to the comments. Squillum, signing off to go watch those. All right, well, Squillum, thanks for stopping by. So I'm going to go back to the video, but that's what an alpha male does. An alpha male needs a crane, he goes out and buys a crane. An alpha male needs a drop hammer, he goes to the pipe supply, buys the pipe, goes to a lead, a person. It was some sort of it was kind of like a junkyard, but the guy took lead. It was a junkyard, but the guy he had a furnace, and he would melt down the copper and the brass and the lead into ingots and then sell it like that, because dirty lead might have a value of 50 cents a pound, but clean lead might go 75, 80 cents a pound. So he sold clean lead. So and the same thing with copper or brass. He would melt it down into clean ingots, and then that way you can sell it for top dollar. So I'll go back to the video, And so that's what an alpha male needs. A crane, they go out and buy a crane. For those of you who are taking notes, an alpha male does not say, today, as one man who believes himself to be an alpha male said years ago, he said, today I'm going to make love to not one but two ladyboys. That's not alpha male material. It's not alpha male material. He's got that confused with somebody else. But he believed himself to be a big guy, big tough guy, because he said he was going to do not one, but two ladyboys at the same time. He said that. That video exists, by the way. And that's not an alpha male. Alpha male, you need a crane, you go buy a crane. You need a drop hammer, you go buy a drop hammer. And then later on, years later, in 1988, guy didn't show up with a barge. And what did I do? I said, let me go buy a barge. And I went to Michigan and bought a barge. That's an alpha male. All that other stuff with the big Kevin talking about me and talking about his how many toys he has in his toy room. None of his toys, all of his toys, don't amount to much when you're going to rack it up next to an alpha male toy box. Big Cabin. He does the best he can with what little that he has. Got to give him credit for that. So let's go back to the video of the real man, real alpha male. Notice I'm being really smooth with my words today because yesterday I did a 4-hour live stream and YouTube they allowed the monetization to stay on, but they only for the red YouTube Red when you buy the package that you don't watch the commercials. So in a matter of, I don't know, you'd have to have 500,000 views to make a couple of dollars. For 1,000 views with YouTube Red, maybe you make about $4 or $5. So I took the video down. I'm not going to have somebody watching 4 hours or something if I'm going to make $8 for 1,000 views. Doesn't pay. That's why I took the video down. There's nothing in the video that was illegal. Just would not allow me to monetize it full value. So I took it down. So moving on. Scott Del Fuego. Tried to say hello to PA Trucker on Big Cabin's show today, but I guess I got blocked since I'm your friend. Yeah, you know what? There was somebody, well, the Big Cabin, he blocked a few. I don't leave comments. My comments off a while back. Somebody took my comment off his show. Popeye show, the same thing. And I know who it is. It's the Big E. The Big E is definitely the person taking the comments down. And no one wants to hear the truth. No one wants to hear the truth. And a lot of people have said, yeah, I remember that show that Biggie did on with Chi. They've said it to me in my comments. People remember what he said. If that's his prerogative, you know what? I don't necessarily believe that because he said that he was going to get involved with two ladyboys. That's his personal business. That's okay. But that's really not alpha male stuff. But he's the one that's doing the blocking. He was the one doing the blocking on, there was another show this morning. I don't remember the name of the show, but someone said that every time they left a comment that Big E was blocking them. This morning, again, on a different show, again, the same thing. So he don't want to hear the truth. And I don't know what they were talking about, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me they were talking about. It was somebody else altogether. Maybe, I don't know. They just said that Big E was blocking people. So on two shows, say Big Kevin's show that somebody was blocking, and on the other show he may have been the one blocking. But moving past that, this is an alpha male channel. Alpha male, when they need cranes, they go buy cranes. When they need drop hammers, they go buy the metal and build a drop hammer. When they need a barge, they go buy a barge. But if you want to portray yourself, this is a message to men that want to make love to other men. If you want to portray yourself as an alpha male, I think that if you call yourself the pin cushion guy and get, let's say, 8 or 10 other men, Lima Bravos, and they hit you from every angle repeatedly for like 2.5 hours, that might qualify to be an alpha male. I don't know for a fact. I mean, but an alpha male of the Lima Bravo classification. So if you want just 2 Lima Bravos working you, pitching and catching, but 10 men turning you into a pin cushion, all at the same time, repeatedly for a couple hours, that would be an alpha male pin cushion that was pitching and catching. That's what I think. So, and I think that he has it in him. No pun intended. I think he could do that. I think he's always saying what a tough guy he is and everything. So maybe he could take a licking and keep on ticking. No pun intended. That's what I think. But he's not an alpha male when it comes to construction or men's workings. I operated a sledgehammer. I remember he said he was operating a sledgehammer all day. It doesn't take a lot of alpha male to operate a sledgehammer all day. It takes a lot of muscle, but muscle doesn't make you an alpha male. The audacity to say, I need a crane, and go buy a crane. The audacity to say, I need a barge, and go buy a barge. That makes you an alpha male, my friend. You are an alpha male. If you never owned a barge and you need a barge and you go buy a barge 800 miles away from New York and then bring the barge back to New York by yourself, that's alpha male stuff. Not like Big Kevin, who bangs a little teeny coffee cup. Bing, 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 bing. That's not alpha male banging a cup, making a lot. He might make a lot, but it's not alpha male banging. Alpha male banging is banging a pot. Nobody has a pot. They have cups, coffee cups. Some of them use plastic cups, thinking that they can go bang a plastic cup and be like Mike. You can't be like Mike unless you have a pot and, of course, in this case, a window to throw it out of. See that window leading up to the Bohol Sea? You have a pot and you have a window to throw the pot out of the window. That's alpha male stuff, my friend. This is Alpha Male Day on an alpha male video comedy channel. And if you want to be an alpha male, go buy a barge. Show me what you got. Don't show me those $110 toys. I got a $110 toy today. I'm an alpha male. No, you're not an alpha male. Kevin, for what you got, for your mental acuity, you should be grateful you got that. But never aspire to be an alpha male. It's just out of your ballpark. You're never going to be an alpha male. Maybe at one time, well, we don't know for sure, but maybe at one time you could have been a contender to be an alpha male. But being that you never made a video of any alpha male stuff, well, your rise and shine day came and went. Moving on, Scott Del Fuego says, Scott says, tried to say hello to PA Trucker on the Big Cabin show today, but I guess I got blocked. Since I am your friend, seems pretty soft, but whatever. So, Flying Circus says, don't underestimate PA Trucker and John Balut, in my humble opinion. Well, they're both Kevin's friends for whatever reason. You could be right about that. I don't know. I don't really have much to do with either one of them. That fella, John Balut, and I have nothing in common with either one of them. I like P.A. Trucker because he's a hardworking man. But John Balut, in real life, I could probably go so far to say hello to him, and that's it. What I would have to have a conversation with him about would be nothing at all. And P.A. Trucker and I could talk for hours about trucking, the cost of brakes, reefer trucks, where the ice refrigerated trucks, that kind of stuff. We could probably talk for hours. But John Balut is, I don't think I would have anything to talk to him about, but I know he likes Kevin for some strange reason, and it is strange. There's some sort of strangeness, not weirdness, strangeness, that a lot of these bloggers have in common with each other. It's some sort of uncanny, unnatural friendship. And when I say unnatural, I think it reaches far beyond that of just handshake and how you doing. So, 9-inch grinders with concrete cup grinders, that's alpha male as F. That's right. See, now, Scott did a job this week. There was an offset in his driveway where one pad sank down and another pad stayed at the same height. So there was an offset of about 1 3/8 to 1.5 inches between the two pads. And Scott and I discussed how to clean that up. And he would need, well, we tried a 4-inch grinder with a cup on it. That didn't work. And I told him that a 9-inch grinder on a Milwaukee or a Makita would work, but they're just such dangerous tools. There's nothing more dangerous than a 9-inch, than what, in construction, I've been in construction my whole life. I think by now, these clowns on YouTube have got to the point where they're never going to doubt that I've been in construction my whole life. It's just not going to happen. But in construction, there's dangerous stuff. Now, the most dangerous tool that you could use as a carpenter, a plumber, or an electrician is something called an open face tool. An open face tool is any tool that does not have a guard on it. So let's just say you have a drill like this. Well, it's just a drill. Drills holes. But if that drill falls on your foot, the drill bit will go right through your foot. There's no doubt about that. Or if you drill through a piece of wood, a drill bit's going to go through your hand or your foot or your leg. It's a dangerous tool, but nothing compared to an open face grinder. When you have this much disc, or even 4 inches of disc, spinning at supersonic speeds, because they are spinning at thousands of feet per second. It's not the grinding part that's dangerous. That's dangerous because it's going to kick up dust and gravel. But if that blade, let's say you have a sleeve shirt on, if that blade grabs that sleeve on the shirt, and the blade can cut your hand off, cut your arm off. If it grabs your shirt at your belly, it will disembowel you. If it grabs your shirt at your chest, it will dig right straight into your heart in less than a second. That's a dangerous tool. So Scott's right about that grinder. Scott did that, and I was the last resort. I told him, okay, well, if you're going to use a 9-inch grinder, wear goggles, wear muffs, and don't keep any shirts, or sometimes people have a sweatshirt and the strings are draped down, and they move their head down, and that grinder will grab those strings and just take your face right off. It's a really dangerous tool. So Scott's a real man, though. That's the difference between a real man and a man that's going to turn himself into a pincushion for views. I like that. He refuses to say, Michael Fazio, it's okay that you publish the email. He refuses to say it. He refuses to say, I won't do it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's just a matter of time. But he is now a wrench on the person who attacked me's show. Go figure. He was going to testify against that person's personality, and now he's a wrench on that person's show. This is what I mean about this unnatural friendship. There's something more that's going on behind the scenes. Something more. Something sinister, in my opinion. And that's okay, because that's all they got. They got their negativity, the lies, the deceits, the half-truths, the bologna and cheese sandwiches. That's all they got. They got nothing else. There's no honor. You don't walk around and I'm going to testify for you, Michael Fazio. I'm going to say that was an assault on your life, and then 3 weeks later you're taking the fella out to dinner and buying him drinks and giving him $200, $250 for money for coffee and drinks. You don't do that. There's something unnatural about stating one thing and doing something different 2 weeks later. It's not normal. But when I'm ready, I'm going to do that 3-hour live stream I promised, and we'll get that email up on the into the books, into the record books. We'll get that email up for all to see. And then you will know what duplistic means. You will know what a two-faced individual means, what it means to be two-faced. You will know what a duplistic nature is. You'll know what a deceiver, a con man, you'll know what those things are when I post the email that he sent me, that someone tried to attack me, to do physical harm and possibly kill me. It's in the email. And then he befriended that person a few weeks later. You'll know what duplistic means, you'll know what two-faced means, and you'll know that he's not a man of his word. So anything and everything that he's ever said, you'll understand to be questionable at best, except that he makes money. He does make money. But he's not to be trusted. He's not to be trusted because I have the letter that proves, the email that proves that he said he was going to do one thing, and 2 weeks later he betrayed me and became friends with the person who actually attacked me. How can you have it both ways? You can't. So that one is coming up too. That live stream will be coming up. Just hold on to your hats, folks. John Balut just buys friendship. Yeah, his personality is lacking, in my opinion. He has no personality. And you know what? I think he's smart, but he's slow. His education is I think he's highly educated, but I think his brain works slow. Not that he is slow, but his brain works slow. And I would say that because he has a child, and I think his child has that. I think he said what it was. Not PSTD, but where they're very rambunctious. They're very anxious. The child is, and I don't know that you can calm a child down when they have that. I don't know much about that particular aspect of mentality. So his son, I saw his son banging on the table about a year and a half ago. I mean, banging and throwing his food around. And his father, John Balut, just didn't say anything, you know. So I think the son has something, and that particular thing, I forgot the name of the thing. When your child is rambunctious, you can't stop him from fiddling and moving around. And I've met a woman like that just recently, actually the day that Daisy and I and her sister went out on the boat on April 30th, I think it was, of this year. There was a woman next to me. The boy was climbing up and down on the chair, and she had to hold him. And I said hello to the boy, and I had given him some candy because I carried candy for the children. And for Daisy's sister's child, but I had candy for her. But I gave the boy a piece of candy. Yes, ADHD. That's it. That's the one. Miko. So I think John's child has that. And he did not try to stop the child because I don't think it's stoppable. Because that day I went out on the boat with Daisy. And her sister, a woman, the child next to me she was holding him back. So I didn't say anything because I knew there was a problem. And I said to her, "It's all right if I give him some candy?" She said, "Sure." But then she told me he has that ADHD. That's what she said. And I said to her, the boy was big. He was like 5 years old. And he was a big boy too. And I said, "Is there anything that you could do to calm him down?" Because she was at her wit's end. She was running away. She had to grab him and pull him back and move in the chair. It didn't bother me. I didn't care. But she said, "No, not much." And I don't know. But so I think John's son has that. But John doesn't even try to calm him down. And it doesn't seem to bother him. So it doesn't bother him. It shouldn't bother me. But I would be hard pressed to say that John is sharp, fast. Think his mental acuity. He may be intelligent. I think he is. But his mental acuity is slow. Now, Miko asks, how did he get his money? He got his money, he said about a year ago, he got his money. His parents or grandmother left him a stupid amount of farmland, whatever it was. He didn't say how much it was, but in a prime area. And he rents out the farmland to other farmers or a farmer, and he gets, I think he said, close to $10,000 a month from the land rental. And then he could retire. So I think he worked in some sort of technology field, but I think when he owned that farmland, he just rented it out. And I think he said he was collecting $10,000 a month from the farmland, which is a good thing. But that's how he gets his money. He may have had a good job and made money, but he got his money from renting from a large amount of farmland or a prime real estate. So let's go back. And John Balut does buy Kevin's friendship because they don't really have anything in common. They've never met. John Balut is just the type of person that needs internet friends. I don't know that, I mean, as far as John Balut is concerned, I couldn't be friends with him because having a conversation would be, I would be into, like, today is Saturday, I'd be talking and he'd still be catching up with Monday's conversation. He's not that sharp, but he's not stupid. He's just too slow to carry a conversation on with, for me. So, and let me go back to the barge video now. I'll show you the more barge work and I'll narrate it. So this is alpha male stuff, of course. All right, at this point I said that's about it, but there's a lot more to this video. So let me just go through it. Here we go.
I think I'm gonna go to sleep now. See you later.
Okay, so at that point, I went to sleep in the daytime. I was grounded in a marsh somewhere between Delaware and Ocean City, Maryland. And the tide was probably running out, so
Against the tide, going against the current.
Okay, here I'm talking
Dealing
about.
with the wind, the tide, and vicariously through others.
I'm back.
Yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to say. For those of you who live your life vicariously through others, I feel sorry for you. Because if you really want to know what living life is...
Good night, Dennis. Thank you for stopping by.
50-foot barge with a single screw from New York to Florida in the middle of December. By yourself through this shitty navigational system that we have, dealing with the wind, the tide, and the weather, and then you'll really know what life is like when it's lived. Because when you go at the end of the day and you realize all that you accomplished, it's a pretty trippy experience. Just last night I wrote down that last night I was going against the tide, going against the current, in 5 and 6 feet of water. Half the time I was pushing the barge backwards by spinning the prop 180 degrees from stem to stern and pulling myself through the thing. And then when I hit buoy marker 348, I got grounded. Then the lights in the cabin dimmed and the spotlights dimmed. So when I took my flashlight downstairs to go look to see why they dimmed, I found that the batteries were discharged when I tested it with the voltmeter. And as I was fixing that, my batteries in my flashlight went dead. Then I got my other flashlight.
Okay, Dennis.
Went dead. Now I had a choice whether or not to keep the barge running or shut the barge off. If I kept it running and went to sleep and blew a fuel line or a hose, I'd blow the motor. So we couldn't do that. If I shut it off, probably wouldn't get it started. And then I'd have to wait for a jump. It's not summer. It's not warm anymore. It's down in the 40s. It's not like you're in the middle of anything. You're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. There's nothing but marshes around here. I saw one boat pass me yesterday in 12 hours of running. The only thing was out all day yesterday was me in a Coast Guard helicopter. And he wanted me to go back in, which he kept trying to tell me by pointing towards the land. I kept giving him the thumbs up sign. Yes, I understand, but there's 5-foot waves and I need to go to the next port, officer in the helicopter. Wouldn't turn his radio on, couldn't reach him on 16, couldn't reach him on 22. I don't know what was on his mind. What did he want me to do, fly? Anyway, then the engine stalled out last night. Oh, it started to rain after the flashlights were going dead. I put another set of batteries in, and then it started pouring. Then as I was working on the motor, I leaned on the throttle and loaded down too much and one of the engines stalled. And I said, that's it. I'm not going to get it running tonight. I just calmly walked over to the other engine, shut it off. I said, I'm going to deal with this when it stops raining. Now, I was nowhere in the middle of nothing. And all I did, I just went to sleep. And then this morning when I woke up, I did a few things, tried to start a motor, it started up. Put batteries in series, that didn't work. I had the crane battery in series with the big 2 dead ones. But I remembered I had this car Stevens battery from the car buried somewhere. I dug that out and an extra set of jumper cables, hooked up all 4, 2 of them in series, the original ones, and then hooked up 2 more, each individual crane battery and car battery in parallel with the original batteries. And then the other motor, I got the other motor running. And then when I got the other motor running, I tested the alternator again and it was working. And when I disconnected the short, apparently it must have an overload diode in it, and the overload diode cooled off and it went back online. Now I have full batteries, all 4 are fully charged, and now I'm just grounded. Oh, as I was saying, for those of you who want to know what life is like when it's being lived, jump out of a plane, I don't know, go scuba diving, swim with the sharks, or run a barge to Florida by yourself in the middle of December in the North Atlantic. And then you will understand what life is all about. And this will go down in the Journals of Things I Know by Michael FAZIO. Now we're done. No, I guess now we're not done. One more thing to say. For those of you who don't believe in some kind of higher power, there has to be something that's keeping me going here, because most of you would have gave up a long time ago. I can't imagine anybody else doing what I'm doing. I know people say, oh, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. You could do gots. You try it, you tell me how you liked it. 2 people at the 2 docks I poured it into were old-timers. Well, no, one was an old-timer, one was a young guy. There was an old-timer standing there listening. And the first old guy was in his 70s. He says he's been on the docks for 50 years, owned the marina for 50 years, and has never, ever once, ever seen anybody do what I'm doing. And the other guy just said that I was a little bit nuts. But he probably couldn't do it either. So, for those of you who don't believe in the higher power, all you have to do is look within yourself and you'll find it. Because it's there if you want it.
All right, so that happened. Now, that happened everywhere I poured it. Every marina, every lock. When I was coming from Michigan to New York in 1988, the lock master at Black Rock Lock in Tonawanda, New York, he said to me, I remember this conversation. I remember a lot of stuff that I did that was unique. He said to me, where's your deckhand? I said, I don't have a deckhand. Now I'm going to go through 33 locks and bridges, and some of the locks drop 35, 40 feet from when you're going down the Erie Barge Canal. Most of the locks drop anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 to 10 feet, 12 feet. Some of them drop 20. I think one lock dropped 37 feet. And that's why you're supposed to have a deckhand. And I said to him, I'm doing this by myself. And he goes, well, you're supposed to have a deckhand. And I said, well, I don't have a deckhand. He goes, well, you know, and he showed me, I never went through a lock before. It was my first lock. And he showed me how to enter into the lock and then where to park the barge. Because the locks are pretty much all the same size. They're about 80 feet wide and 300 feet long. They're big locks. The locks are pretty much the same size. So they accommodate the biggest boat that they accommodate, and that's it. And so they're all pretty much a standard size. He said, but when a lock is draining out, you're going to have a running tide with you. You got to be careful. Just he showed me what to do. But he also said to me, nobody has ever in his history, he was in his 60s, nobody has ever traversed the Erie Barge Canal by themselves, ever. Never happened. In a barge, in a barge like mine, a self-propelled 30 by 50 barge. He said, that never happened. Everybody has an assistant, because what you have to, the lock doors open up, they open inward, and they lock so that the pressure of the water, it depends if they in or out, but it depends which way the pressure is the biggest. And then you have to put a tag, you have to tag ahead a cleat, what they call them a head. They call them a different kind of head than, they have a name for them, but you have to, that was back, you can't use that word anymore. You have to tag a head with a line, just by draping a line over the head. One in the front of the barge and one in the back. So now you got 2 lines. Now those are 1-inch nylon or 1-inch hemp lines. You don't, it doesn't hold the barge in place. It just holds the barge up against the wall of the lock, because there could be a boat in front of you, in back of you, and to your side when you tag the heads. And that's why you need an assistant, because one guy tags the head in the back of the barge, and one guy tags the head in the front of the barge. But I didn't have an assistant. So I would drape. Now, if you're at the bottom of the lock, you got to have a guy that runs up the stairs, and then you have to pull the line up to the head. Some locks go up and some locks go down. So I would have to throw a monkey up onto the platform. Then I'd run up the platform, run up the stairs before you get onto the barge. The barge is in the lock. You got to jump off the barge in the water and then go to the stairs and then run up the stairs and go get the monkey, because the lock is closed now. So now the lock is going to close. Now you're on top of the barge, the lock, and the barge is going to go, let's say, down. Well, then you have to feed the lines off to keep the barge tight up against the wall of the wall of the lock. Simple, right? But now you are 30 feet higher than the water. So you can either jump off the platform, and then you have the ropes. So you got to take the rope and then throw it down, whatever you could get onto the barge. You throw the rope down on the barge. Or you could, if you could get it all coiled up on top and just throw the whole rope on the barge, but you're still upstairs. So the staircase to go down into the lock that you came into, that's a different level now. So you can't go through that back staircase, the back behind the barge staircase. You got to go to the front staircase, which is 250 feet ahead of the barge. If there were boats in front of you, you have to wait for the boats to pull out of the dock, out of the lock, and then jump in the water and swim to the barge. That's one way. Of course, everybody already figured out the other way, right? Instead of going to the other end of the lock, waiting for the doors to open and waiting for the boats to leave the lock, you can leave the head, you leave the rope tagged on the head, and you grab the rope, you bring a pair of gloves up with you, and you grab the rope, and you slide down the rope 30 feet to the barge. That's how I did it. But the problem with that is the barge is moving away from the dock and in and out like that, because the water in the lock is going in and out, and there's current. So you got to wait for the barge to come back up against the lock while you're hanging on the rope. Or unless you get lucky, the barge just stays up against the lock. Or you could, of course, move the rope up to the next head, go down the rope, go in the water, swim over to the side of the barge, come back up the barge, and then pull the rope down onto the barge. And then you got 30 feet of line. falling on your head. This is alpha male stuff, folks. This is not for the young at heart. This is not for the old of heart. This is alpha male stuff. That's why you have an assistant. The assistant can stay up on top, drop the lines. You bring the barge over to the end of the dock, the end of the lock, and then you lay the barge up against the staircase and he jumps on. But when you don't have an assistant, you got to do all that stuff yourself. And then you got to coil up the ropes so that the next lock, you're ready to go up and down. And there were 33 locks and bridges. So I don't remember how many bridges there were. Might have been 8 or 10. And then there was a bridge that I had to dismantle. Like, woof, woof, woof. I heard about that for a week on the radio. There was a turn bridge, a turn trestle. A trestle was supposed to turn like this and open up, but it didn't do that. The motor, the trestle was abandoned. There was no way, and the clearance was only like 9 feet. The barge was 14 foot 6 inches tall, the cabin. I wasn't going to take the cabin off with all the hydraulics and the electronics. And the current behind the barge was 5 knots. So I couldn't go back up against the current. So when I got to the bridge, the chart said, the Erie Barge Canal chart said the bridge is an opening and closing bridge. When I got to the bridge, there was no motor package in the bridge. The motor had been taken out, and there was no way to open the bridge. It was just closed. And they put some welding, they welded some plates on the bridge to keep it from opening by itself, I guess. I don't know. I went up there with a torch onto the bridge. I burnt off all the fail safes to keep the bridge from opening up. I cut them all, and then I put the cable from the crane through a shiv on the spud well. A shiv is a big pulley. And then I pulled the bridge and opened up the bridge. It hadn't been opened in 20 or 30 years. And then I went through the bridge. And I was thinking to myself, nobody was there. Nobody was there to see this adventure. Nobody was there to say, hey, you can't do that. Nobody was there to say, can I give you a hand? Nobody was there. Nobody was there when I got to the bridge. Nobody was there when I was there, stuck at the bridge. The barge was laid up against the bridge. I couldn't go back up against a 5-knot current, and that current was coming from Lake Erie down to the Hudson River. There was no way to go back. I dismantled all their fail safes and opened up the bridge, and I went through it. Then I went through it, and I'm going, it took me hours. It took me like 8 or 9 hours to open that bridge. And the gears, they all worked. I mean, it was the gears were there. They didn't weld the gears shut. They just welded steel plates, what we call scabs, on the sides of the bridge. So I went up there with my torches. I had a 100-foot hose on the tanks, and I burnt everything off. Opened up the bridge, went through it. Then when I went through it, I said, maybe I should shut it so they don't know I was here. I looked around. I says, nobody knows I was here. I'm out of here. And I left. Then for days, they had to know it was me. They had to know. Because that same lockmaster was the same lockmaster for like 40 miles. He opened up Black Rock Lock in Tonawanda, New York, and then he opened up the next lock and the next lock after that, and he would open up a bridge, and he would, for 40 or maybe 50 miles, maybe more, he was the lockmaster. and the person that opened up the bridges. But I didn't call them on the radio. When I realized that the bridge was closed down many, many years ago, what I did was I made a mistake. I followed the chart to where it said the bridge was a turn bridge, or I could have I went left when I should have went right. But if I go right, there's something called the Finger Lakes. The Finger Lakes. You have to go through another 25, 30 miles navigation in deep water to get past the Finger Lakes. So I said, why should I go an extra 25 miles? I'll just go to the bridge. But there was no bridge. It was an old bridge that didn't open till I got there. I opened it up. So I know the lockmaster knew it was me. He never said anything. They said, I heard stuff that the bridge house somehow got open. They could go there and see fresh burn. I torched everything. Open. You could see that somebody just cut through their 1/2-inch steel plates. I had to rip off the railing too. I remember that. The railing was also welded, closed. There were straps on the bridge and straps on the railing, and I had to cut through that stuff as well. And one of them I missed, and when I pulled the bridge open, I ripped the railing off of like 30 feet of the far side of the bridge. So the lockmaster never said anything. He was cool about that. But they all knew it was me. Nobody. Let's make no mistake about it. Nobody else could have done what I did. Another adventure, another alpha male make a decision. I got to go through this bridge. I can't go back the other way. How do I would have disassembled that bridge if I had to. I would have disassembled it to its basic components had I needed to do so. I was going that way. I had no choice to go that way, and to go back around, well, I made an executive decision. I'll take the shortcut. The shortcut ended up saving me 25 miles of fuel, and luckily I had enough gas on the barge to cut everything. I cut it all. LOL, Dennis. Okay, we've hauled some barges in our day filled with lumber, coal, and hay. Every inch of the way I know from Albany to Buffalo. Oh, that's cool. Scott was a bargeman. That's dangerous work, barge. Barge life is dangerous work. That's alpha male stuff. Albany to Buffalo. See, that's where I ended up. Buffalo is right by Black Rock Lock Canal, right by Tonawanda, New York. I even went to the Buffalo Chicken Wings place, the famous Buffalo Chicken Wings. When I pulled into port in Buffalo, I needed a bath, I needed something hot to eat, and I needed fuel. So I pulled in where the ship's harbor, and they didn't charge me, though. They could have, but they said, you're the guy that came from Traverse City, Michigan? They all knew who I was. I said, yeah. He goes, how long are you going to stay? I said, 2 days. He goes, have a good rest, whatever. So I asked him where the Buffalo Chicken Wings place was. It was walking distance from the port. It's not a big place. The famous Buffalo Chicken Wings place, you walk in, the little bar on the right-hand side, tables on the left. You go to the room. There's a room at the end of the bar. On the right side is the Buffalo Chicken Wings, the original poster. And then in the back, there's an open outside eating area. It's not a big place. You would think it was like a giant eatery. It probably doesn't have 10 tables in the whole thing, inside and maybe 12 outside. Yeah, I went there. I had the famous Buffalo Chicken Wings with blueberry sauce, blueberry cheese, not blueberry, that that rotten cheese, the blue cheese. I had that. They were good. They were really good. Plus, I was really hungry. Yeah, but you know, Lewis, maybe they were nothing special to you. But I had not eaten nothing at all but SpaghettiOs and spaghetti spaghettio meatballs and cold salami for days, for weeks. To get to Buffalo, it was 1,300 miles. I ate cold food. Once I had warm food. A guy offered me on Lake St. Clair, a fella. I don't remember his name. I should remember his name. He said, Mike, he goes, how long you been on that barge? And I said, I don't know, a couple of weeks. When was the last time you had something to eat that was warm? And I told him whatever it was. And he goes, we have that boat over there. And that's one of the videos that I have. He made a video for me. He goes, but you gotta take a bath first. You gotta take a bath. He goes, there's bathrooms in the gas station. Go take a bath and shave and come sit down and have dinner with us. The guy gave me a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. He said, when was the last time you had a cigarette? I said, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. He goes, do you smoke? I said, yeah. He gave me a pack of Marlboros because there was no place to buy cigarettes. And he gave me a hot meal, and he gave me a roll of quarters. I don't know why he gave me the roll of quarters. I had plenty of money. But he gave me a roll of quarters, I guess to make phone calls. Maybe that's what it was. But I remember that's what he gave me. But I hadn't eaten anything but cold food for 45 days. I didn't eat anything but cold food except for that one fella that made me food in his boat. Nice boat, big boat. His family, they were taking a ride. They were going to the Finger Lakes. The Erie Barge Canal, by this time it was already the end of June. It could have been it was past June. I spent July 4th in Port Austin, Michigan. It was in July. Actually, it was the middle of July. And had to be because I spent July 4th in Port Austin, Michigan. So it was warm. The weather was warm. The water was cold. But that Erie Barge Canal is one of the most beautiful nature trips you can take in the whole world. But you have to have a vessel that sets at least 9 feet above the water level, because the canal comes up 5 feet, and then you have some growth. If you really want to see the beauty of the Erie Barge Canal, there are estates along the top of the Erie Barge Canal in Buffalo, New York. There are estates that you need a golf cart to go from the Erie Barge Canal to the house. It might be 1,000 feet to the house from the canal, and the people have their docks along there. But moving back to Lewis, those chicken wings were the best chicken wings I ever had in my life. I'm sure they were just regular chicken wings, but to me, that was when you don't eat anything hot for 40 days, and you eat cold salami, cold cheese, cold cans of tuna fish, no mayonnaise, buffalo chicken wings, hot. Come on, nothing is better than that. That's the best. So that was an experience, but to be able to see it from that elevation, 15 feet, the top of the cabin was 15 feet, 14 foot 6 inches. So I was 14 feet eye level. You could see over the berm that made the canal. What a beautiful trip. And it's a beautiful trip even without being able to see it. It's just an amazing nature, there's all the different types of animals, and you see deer along the side of the canal, wild deer. You see moose. You see whatever's there, whatever's in nature back in 1988, whatever was available to see. Maybe not moose, elk. I think they were elk, not moose. But there's probably moose there too. But it's a beautiful trip. Caviar. They were the caviar of the world. So, yeah, that was, and so this is all alpha male stuff. No shower, no hot water. When there was a hose available, when I pulled up at a fuel dock, it was just mountain water. That is a lot better than not taking a bath for 10 days. Ice cold mountain water, definitely better than being filthy like that. You got to take the good with the bad. You got to take the good. So a lot of times I would just take a bath in my pants, because you really can't get naked outside a gas station. And they would say, I said, look, I'm going to use the hose. They say, okay. And I had a bar of soap, and I would just, soap up and then rinse off. Real man stuff, real alpha male stuff, none of that. I'm going to tell my mother I'm going to be a pincushion for 10 Lima Bravos. None of that stuff. You know what you guys should notice? The way I laugh now is the same way I laugh in the video. When that guy said he was going to make love to 2 Lima Bravos, I can't get over that. I'm never going to forget when he said that. He said it in a public venue, and he meant that he was going to make the love to the 2 Lima Bravos that night. And he calls himself a real man. No, I don't think so. Let's go back to the LOL, says Dennis. Scott says, my friends have a couple of casual bar restaurants. Best wings I've ever had. Yeah, there are. Chicken wings, when they're cooked right, I like chicken wings. I like them. I like them barbecued with charcoal. I like the tips of the wings crispy, and I eat that last section of the wing with the bone. When it's burnt just right, I always eat that. I eat most of the bones in chicken anyway. I like the chicken bones. You get the marrow out of it. So I might eat 30% of all the bones in a chicken or a turkey. But turkeys are a lot harder. You got to hit them with a hammer to get the marrow out. But I like the marrow. But let's go back to let me go back to the tape here. Okay, here's another bridge. Let me turn this around. I'll leave the captions on.
He probably couldn't do it either. So, for those of you who don't believe in the higher power, all you have to do is look within yourself and you'll find it. Because it's there if you want it. Well, these bridges are only 51 feet, and the barge is 32. Plus, I have the mat on the side. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, especially being that I got a cross current.
So what I'm saying is the opening in the bridge is 52 feet. The barge is 30. The mat is 5. So that leaves 37 feet. The barge is 37 feet wide. That leaves 13 feet that you got to split on either side to pilot the barge through without ripping something apart. If you hit the bridge with the barge, you're going to pull the batter boards off the bridge. You're going to owe them $1 million. If you hit the bridge with the mat, the crane mat, probably nothing would happen. But the idea is to not hit the bridge. That's the idea. So a good captain always tries not to smash into the bridges.
And a crosswind. I'm going to have to put this camera down and make this one.
Now you got to judge this bridge. You got to figure if there's wind. You got to figure if the tide or a current flow. You got to figure for two different, compensate for wind and tide, because if you miss the bridge, you can't stop the barge. That's not like a car. The barge is 200 tons going forward. It rips everything apart. This is alpha male stuff. Remember, alpha male stuff.
I worked out on the other side.
Here we go. Okay, I made it through the bridge. I don't know why the camera shut off, but I made it through. Another one.
I didn't think I was going to make it through last night, though. You can't see certain things, even though this camera takes pictures of them. For instance, you can't tell that it's 30 degrees out here today. That's cold. Last night, my bedding, my wonderful bedding, got wet from that bolt up there. And I was cold last night. Nothing would feel like that. I wanted to go downstairs and sleep on the motor. I couldn't. I was working in the rain. I got stuck again at 398, buoy 386. All day I spent there. And then I was working in the rain to get out of it. To get out of the, off the shoal I was on. And what happened was, I didn't have rain gear on, and it started to pour, and I got soaked. Then I couldn't lose the chill. Then after I got into the cabin, I couldn't lose the chill. So there's got to be a way to keep warm on this barge. And there was. You take this light here, that light, and you put it on, and you slip it underneath your jacket and over your shirts, and you put it on your heart. And that light will keep you...
Yeah, you take that light, turn it on, put it under your jacket, over your shirt, and put it on your heart. And that will warm up your body because it warms up your core. That's how I kept warm when it was cold. If I woke up in the middle of the night and I was freezing, I put this light on my chest, and in about 5 minutes, felt like you were in Florida. That is true. When you warm your heart, you warm the blood, and that's how I stayed from freezing to death during the snow and the ice storms. This light, that light saved my life. I have that light here in the Philippines.
In 15 minutes, I had to take it off. It was too hot. I figured it out. Of all these jobs I see, there isn't one nice job. Nothing like the ones I built on 95th Street. Although I probably earn it on like that anywhere. I've never seen any. I still do the best work. Well, I'm going to reserve some film for later and some batteries. I'm in Delaware now. I don't know what part of Delaware. Stone Harbor, Delaware. I'll be looking at Chesapeake City. Chesapeake Bay in about 7 hours. By 4 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be in Chesapeake Bay. Sure is pretty out here, but it's cold, and I want to head a little bit more south because it's going to go down until 20 tonight.
So here, I'm going, I got the full throttle and the current was strong enough to almost stop me. And that's, when that happens, it's just time to stop. Because you might go a mile in an hour, but you'll burn 5 gallons of fuel to go a mile when you're going against the tide. So when I was going against the tide and the wind, I would just drop anchor and just sit there, because if you're going with the current, you could go 5 miles an hour. If you're going against it and you go 5 miles an hour, but you burn 2 gallons a mile. If you're going against the current, you go 1 mile an hour and you burn 6-7 gallons an hour. So you gotta, going with the tide and with the wind is best. Say if you were going against it, some days the wind would be 30 miles an hour against the barge, and I would just stay in one spot anchored for 1, 2, 3, 4 days sometimes, because you can't go against the wind or the tide. Well, this brings back memories.
The current came around a corner on the water, I guess. It just sucked the front of the barge away from it. I guess, Bob, that was a mistake. But it wasn't my fault. It was under the water. I couldn't see it.
Good night, Scott. Okay, see you later. Thanks for stopping by.
This is Cape May Harbor.
Wherever Cape May Harbor is. I don't even remember.
998. I think this is the canal that brings me to the Cape May Canal, but I'm not sure. I'm drying my clothes. That's one of the dirtiest jobs I've ever done in my life. Sandblasting. You guys have a nice... That's the bridge that leads Chesapeake Bay. And it'll bring me into the Cape May Canal. I mean, it leads Cape May Harbor. and it'll bring me into the Cape May Canal, and that'll bring me to, I don't know, I think it's Virginia. I think it's Virginia. I'm not sure. I never really looked until I get there. Tried to get fuel in a couple places, but no one could accommodate the barge. So I'll fuel up when I hit Cape May, Chesapeake Bay. Sounds like I don't know where I'm going. Truth is, I don't look on the map until I get to about 2 miles from where I'm going. This way it's not too confused. Missed this bridge altogether by a whole canal. But it's here now. Doesn't look like there's much to say. Sure, Dad shot underneath that one plenty of times. Well,
This is where my dad used to, Cape May, New Jersey, where he would bring construction materials from mostly upstate New York, but sometimes from Long Island Sound, from Connecticut, on either side of the Sound. And he would go up, certain materials he'd pick up in Boston, Massachusetts, and bring all over the eastern seaboard from Maine, pretty much most of the way. He would work from Maine on certain tows, not quite to Florida. North Carolina would be about as far as they would push that as far as his job would bring him. But he knew every canal, every bridge between Maine and North Carolina. And plus he was an expert at reading charts. Me, I wasn't so good at that.
I'll sign off for now. That was a historical type swing bridge. Doesn't look like there's much to say. Sure,
That's a swing bridge. That's the one, the swing bridge that you're going to see coming up. That's the kind of that I opened up on its own by myself when I cut the straps.
Well, I'll sign off for now. That was
Now that's a swing bridge. It's a railroad swing bridge.
That was a tough one. That's a historical type swing bridge. Really not much you could say.
And this was the beauty of the trip, was to see all of this stuff. It was a beautiful trip, but it was hard.
I couldn't fuel up at the dock. So I'm fueling up on the run. I have
Cape May
gas.
is between Atlantic City and Ocean City. Thank you, Dennis. I don't remember that stuff. This is going back 24 years, 25 years. That video is quite high resolution, considering it was $1,000 camera, but it was 25-year-old technology. So I couldn't fuel up at the fuel dock, so I had to take fuel from downstairs in 5-gallon containers and bring it up and fuel it up here, because I didn't have a fuel transfer pump that would pump it from where I had it stored to here. So I had to bring it up in 5-gallon containers while the barge is underway. Alpha male stuff, remember, alpha male stuff. That was rough water.
See, when you
That don't look good at all.
Uh-oh, time for a quick bath. The water that was in that can was inside the barbecue because it's black. That's how I heated up water. It wasn't real hot, but it was warmer than cold water. Oh God, that was tough.
Well, this is what the barge looks like after 6 days, well, 5 days, and doesn't look that bad. Everything's still intact. The gangbang got wasted though the other day. Got a couple inches of water in it. That's from the waves washing over the front of the barge. We have a little Delaware mud, and this is where I'm going to camp tonight. Right by the Cape May ferry docks. Pretty nice here, actually. I was going to camp over in that hole over there. There's a nice little cove. And I said, yeah, something just don't seem right. And with that, I turned around. The Coast Guard was right up my butt. Anyway, this is real pretty. Tomorrow I'm going to cross the Cape to, I think it brings me to Delaware. I'm not real sure. I know I go out this channel about 1 mile. Just about a mile outside after that breaker, I make a left. And 17 miles later, 17 inches, I mean 14 miles on the map later, I'm going to be where I'm going to be. I think in Delaware. I don't know.
In this 2-minute video, we will be showing you how to use a cone filling.
All right, then. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. And if anybody has any questions about the barge, who built the barge, about the crane, how long the trip took, ask it now, and I'll answer your question. But, so that's why I laugh at you people that make videos, or that you have a belief that you've done something adventurous or dangerous in your life. What are you comparing it to? A guy sitting in a cubicle at the end of the block. Big Kevin. I have a coffee cup. I bang a coffee cup. I'm a real man. You make me laugh when you say a real man. You don't know what a real man is. Good night, Louis. Hey, thank you for staying up. I know it's way past your bedtime. Morning for me, right? It's about 1 o'clock here. It's 1 o'clock here. Good night, Louis. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the donation, the super chat. So I appreciate it. All right, so I got 30 more for those people that are going to watch some of these videos. I got about 30 hours of barge stuff, but this is an easy one. There's no typhoon, no hurricane, no 17-foot seas, no Coast Guard rescue. The next video is going to be coming through Delaware, and then the next one after that is the Coast Guard had to rescue me in 17-foot seas, 75-mile-an-hour winds at 1 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, I was going to get washed up on the rocks. They had one helicopter, two 82-foot cruisers, and two 41-foot cutters. I think cutters, yeah. I think two 41s, two 82s or 81s, and two pontoon boats came out to rescue me. That's why I'll never say a bad word about the Coast Guard. They cost me a lot of money in fines years before this video was being made. But what they did to save me and rescue the barge, it all balanced out in the end because they spent a lot of money to rescue me. So thanks to the U.S. Coast Guard. Thumbs up. All right, then, everybody, thanks for watching. And I think that's it for now. Tomorrow will be, I think I'm going to try to do a couple of these videos this week, and then I'll let you off the hook. And then I might show, I have about 35 hours of barge videos. I won't bore you with all of them. I'll pick out another good one. I'm Pink Permy from Michael Fazio and Daisy May in the Philippines. Daisy May might make a guest appearance shortly. I got to talk to her later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now. Thank you again, Dennis, Scott, Lewis, Squiggly, Squiggum, Alcino Vargas, and, of course, Mick Fisher. I love when Mick Fisher comes here because I like Mick Fisher. I'm Pink Permy from the Philippines, baby. Bye-bye for now.